Yes, I know, really. Good holiday?
Yeah.
No, it's good. It was great. It's gone.
I was like eating.
I think
Good evening, welcome to the Red Bank Council meeting for November 29th. Please rise for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilman Engstrom?
Here.
Councilman Zipridge?
Here.
Councilwoman Morgan? Councilwoman Schwabenbauer? Here. Councilman Taylor?
Here.
Councilman Webb?
Here. Sunshine Statement, please.
Let the minutes reflect that in compliance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231 of the Public Meetings Act, the notice of this meeting has been provided by notifying the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger, by placing a notice on the bulletin board and filing same with the Borough Clerk on January 1, 2017.
Thank you. Is there a motion to suspend the regular order of business tonight? So moved. We have a really extraordinary event. You see we have a lot of young guests. And welcome. And congratulations. We have the champs for the division, which are our middle school boys soccer team and their coaches. So, and the superintendent and board of education members are here. So it's really a special night for the Red Bank family. We've got some certificates for all of you. As some of you know, I've had a rather bumpy couple of days, not because of politics, but because of the flu and high fever. So I'm going to ask our council president to assist me as I read out the names, and she will give out the certificates and shake your hands as she's the liaison to the school board or whoever else you guys visit. Okay, whatever. Anybody, I don't want to cause friction. More the merrier. So you'll excuse me if I do not shake your hand. I don't want to get you sick. Of course, our borough attorney is going to be putting in for workers' comp after tonight because he already told me. Jonathan Abel Rojas. Not here today. Okay. Jonathan Hernandez.
Not here today.
I'm really striking out. Thank you.
Right now, though.
Three strikes, you're out.
Jonavan Eugenio. Don't be shy. David Acetopan. Why are you all shy tonight? We're not going to bite you. There. Good job. Esteban Campa. Richard Lezema. Seven Dismute. Carlos Guerra. Bear McLaughlin. Mario Pocasandre. Julian Olson. Edward Lima. Henry Gomez. Alexis Rojas. Jonathan Rojas. Eric Lezama. Axel Vasquez. Gonzalo Ponce. Oliver Diaz. Christopher Flores. Michael Grande. Jose Gonzalez. Jordan Diaz. Johan Vasquez, he's the captain. Boss. Capitan. And Roberto Santamaria, the fullback. Coach, would you like to say a few words? Come on, you're not shy.
It has really been a pleasure this year, representing. It's my 8th year as the Red Bank Middle School coach, my 9th year in the district. They definitely have skill and talents that gave them their 2-year consecutive 27-0-1 tie last year. I'm most proud of them for their character and the way that they conduct themselves on the field. They are definitely a positive role model, and they represent Red Bank in a very positive way. They've had numbers of compliments from teachers, emails from teachers that we were even read at the Board of Ed meeting, as well as even referees in the district or in the town, as well as some other coaches that just said that they, the first one to kneel when another player gets hurt, and they were very respectful at the end of the game, and you'll never hear them calling out or yelling. So very good representation of Red Bank.
What you said about you are great ambassadors of Red Bank is so true. I'm looking around, and I'm looking at all of you. What great representatives we have. All of you have come from wherever you were at school or you were playing. You went home, you got changed, you're all wearing ties, you're looking sharp. I think that is such a great testament to our public school system. And it looks I'll tell you a funny story. I do a lot of prosecutions and a lot of municipal courts, and Councilman Youngstrom has been with me in some of my courts. And there used to be an old municipal court judge who was known as a really tough person for anything, but Judge Apostolou. And Judge Apostolou, every time somebody came before him, as long as if it was a young man, that young man wore a tie and a jacket, goes, "Young man, you're impressing the court." The guy could have done the worst thing in the world if he was skated. So impression is worth a lot. And the impression that you portray not only is a reflection of you, but of your parents, your teachers, and our community. So I want to thank you on behalf of the entire council. Dr. Brumage, could you favor us with a few words?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, I just want to let you know, we were at New Corner Pizzeria about an hour ago. We had a tie in class, so it was a lot of fun. So I hope I did a good job. I just wanted to, Coach John kind of stole my thunder, but I wanted to say a couple things about the team. Number one, they were undefeated in back-to-back seasons with championship wins, but we are so proud of what they've accomplished on the field, but we're really happier for who they are and what they represent. If you see them, one of the things that stands out to me is their smiles. They have the best smiles, they're always smiling, and they share it throughout the halls of our school. They are very impressive young men. They treat each other extremely well. They treat their peers in our schools, within our hallways, very well also. And when it comes to citizenship and sportsmanship, and I'm not talking about on the field, I'm talking about beyond that, in our schools, and in our community, they are second to none. So they represent us extremely well. I'd also like to recognize our coach, Coach A, and Coach Nathanson, as well as our athletic director, Mr. Pearson, for doing a fine job supporting these men. Our coaches are very demanding and have high expectations for our student athletes, but at the same time, they're compassionate and supportive. So I would like to thank them for their efforts. And I have to leave tonight, so I would be remiss if I didn't say two other things. On another note, the first, I'd like to thank the council for their support at Red Bank Primary School. We're in an attempt to make sure that the outside of the primary school is as beautiful and amazing as what happens on the inside of our school. And a few weeks ago, the borough, because of Mark Taylor and Stanley Sickles, Cliff Keane, also Tommy Welsh, and many borough employees, collaborated with our employees to beautify the outside of the school. So we really appreciate your support in doing that. And there's amazing things that happen inside those walls. We want the outside to really reflect that as well. And on one final note, I'd like to thank Stanley Sickles for all of his support over the past 4 years. Wish him the best in his retirement, a happy and healthy retirement. On behalf of the Board of Education and Red Bank Borough Schools, you've been a great supporter of mine, our students, and our schools. And we wish you all the best. And on behalf of the team, I thank you again for inviting us. And I expect that we'll be back here in about a year after our three-peat. Yeah.
You're all welcome to stay, and we would understand if you wanted to leave. Is there a motion to resume the regular order of business? Second, all in favor? Any opposed? We have a couple of workshop items. First is the DOT easement request. Stanley, you want to deal with that briefly?
Yes, Mayor, the DOT is about to do some improvements to Highway 35 on the full length from, I believe, south of us all the way to the bridge. And part of that is they're doing some work to improve the handicap crossings along the Highway 35 corridor. And there is a crossing that needs to be repaired, which is on borough property down here, the Orford Place entrance right near Pirabino Restaurant. It's a small corner of the sidewalk, but in order for them to proceed to do that work, we have to grant them the easement. And in return, they're going to pay us $500 to fix the sidewalk there. And that's what that's all.
Has everybody taken a look at the easement? This goes back a number of years, so it's nothing new. Yeah, does anybody have any questions? There is a resolution for your consideration on the agenda. Second, the fire marshal construction official appointments, which are temporary appointments in light of the changes in the administrative structure. Stanley, you want to deal with that?
Basically, Mr. Mayor, as I pointed out and tried to put things in order for the change in administration, I need to assign my responsibilities to the subordinates in the fire marshal's office, construction official's office. For years, we've had a deputy fire marshal, Tommy Welch, who has done most of our field work since I took on the role as the highway administrator, but the purchasing agent. We've been working in our office diligently. He came to work for us in 1996. He handles most of the responses. He's the first call in the middle of the night. He's done very well. He's become recognized in the field. He's been the fire inspector of the year for the county, and he's the logical choice to take the acting position until such time as the council makes a decision for a full-time appointment. And I would strongly ask the council to consider that in the organization. And secondly, John Drucker came to us in 2002, I believe. It was soon after 9/11. John's been in the fire protection field since, and construction code field since he was 18. He was actually my deputy fire marshal at Monmouth Park, and I was fire marshal at Monmouth Park years ago. Subsequently, he went into the private industry, rose to through various jobs to be the head of fire alarms and systems for Siemens Electronics. And his last billet for them was he was in charge of putting the fire alarm systems back into the World Trade Center after the 1993 bombing. Luckily for him, a week before the towers were hit in 2001, he was assigned a different project and survived. Unfortunately, one of his cohorts passed away. But Soon thereafter, we had an opening for fire subcode official, and we brought John on board. And he has risen to taking on a lot of the responsibilities with regard to not only fire subcode, but also he was named assistant construction official in 2013. And he's basically done a lot of the day-to-day operations of the office. And so what I'd like to do is at least have some time to transition what I do with regard to the final review and approvals, budgeting, purchase orders, sign those things to them and have some transition time. So that's why I think it's important to make them the acting so that they can take on those responsibilities.
Okay. Those resolutions are on the agenda for this evening. Unless anybody has any problems with them, we'll move on them. Third workshop item is actually, it says White Street Project that was put at the request of the council person. Since that does involve some negotiations, probably the better way to do that is for us to retire an executive session, come back in and discuss it at the end of the meeting, and then maybe or maybe not take action. We should discuss that in executive session first, and then on as soon as we finish the regular meeting, and then we'll go through that. The second item that is also going to be tabled for executive session discussion is Resolution 17259, so we can discuss that in executive session, and then we can come back and either table that for that next meeting or act on it at that time, because that's also important. Other than that, is there anything else for workshop? If not, approve of the minutes October 25th. So second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? November 13th, motion. Second. All in favor? There are no appointments. Report of Mayor and Council Committee. Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank everybody who came out and participated in the open public meeting for Sunset Park this past Monday. We appreciate the feedback that was received, and we will prepare our concept plan based on that feedback. My apologies that I could not attend because I was out of state for the holidays. A few things upcoming this season. Parks and Rec is having a clothing drive. We'll be donating the clothes to St. Anthony's and to Lunch Break. So if any winter clothes or any clothes really that you have that you want to donate, bring them to the Parks and Rec department on the third floor, second floor, sorry. The West Side tree lighting will be Saturday, December 9th at 6 p.m. in Johnny Jazz Park. The performances by the Primary School Choir, Pilgrim Baptist Church, and the Academy of Dance and Performing Arts. Lunch Break and a special guest from the North Pole will also be on hand. Also, we'll be doing our Santa calls on December 12th and 13th. To all the kids in town. And then lastly, we partnered with the Middle School Student Council, and we have revamped our housing decoration contest. The 7th grade Student Council officials have picked out all the prizes and will be doing the judging this year. So decorate your houses so they can come around and evaluate you and put you in the running. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ed.
The road program was executed in October, November, and we've concluded with paving Layton, Prospect Avenue, Manor Drive, and the Department of Public Utilities has also rebuilt the Cold Street parking lot, which looks great, by the way. East Bergen is currently in design and engineering phase. It will be executed in the spring of 2018. We are also looking at other possible candidates for repaving in the exchange rate program. Our new well is nearing completion, and that project will bring us into compliance with the state DEP's requirement for firm capacity and backup water sourcing. Historic Preservation Commission met with Glenn Quater about proposed modifications to strengthen the historic ordinance, as discussed earlier this fall with Mayor Manna and my colleagues. The commission is working on the research, and Mr. Carter will collaborate with them on his return from vacation to finalize that. The borough's management consultant has been arranged to help analyze and reorganize Red Bank's municipal government. For the new year, in the last 2 weeks, I know the library, River Center, along with DPU, has met with the consultants. Feedback has been extremely positive from all of our staff about the team that's working with us. I also sat with Mr. Duravitz to discuss his progress and preliminary findings last week. His team is compiling that data, and that will give the borough a roadmap to the future And this is a very exciting time for Red Bank as we move closer to the quarter century mark of this 21st century. As we look at what the findings are and what the government strategy group is compiling, we may find that it is incumbent upon us to expand the term of the contract should we deem necessary, and I'm sure we can discuss that in executive session. And lastly, I attended the last quarterly meeting of the River Center Board earlier this month, and I wanted to extend our congratulations to all of the winners of the River Centers Award that were given out last month. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ed. Kathy?
No report.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. First, this upcoming Tuesday is the fire chief elections. Our incoming chief, Stuart Jensen, is here in attendance. I look forward to working with as the fire commissioner. 2 years ago, we had some really great progress in our fire department in terms of consolidation and trying to get other firehouses on board with moving into the future. It's an integral part of trying to keep a volunteer department not only thriving but alive. I mean, you look at other municipalities throughout Monmouth County that had to go from a volunteer department to a paid department, and it costs like could be up to $5-6 million a year to run a paid department. So it's a huge benefit that we have, Red Bank has, to have a volunteer service, and I look forward to your leadership coming in. Chief Jensen, elections are next week, so I can early congratulations. I look forward to an upcoming year. Also to Stanley's point about echoing off of John Drucker, Tommy Welsh. I've worked with them for the last 2 years in my role at the fire department, and I couldn't see two better men fit the position, so I look forward to working with you as well. Also, I got a report from the Scooter Dudes. I wish I had it in front of me. I forgot to bring it, but they've had at this point almost 1,000 different riders. I know River Center has loved working with them. The businesses are promoting them, they're advertising, so it's been actually a very huge success so far. They're really fun. It was a small business Saturday. Mark and I are actually riding in them around the town, and it was really nice. So Small Business Saturday, River Center did a great job. And that's all.
Thank you.
Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple updates. I was at the Parks and Rec meeting for the Sunset Park concept plan. There was a lot of good feedback from that meeting, both positive and negative, some things to look at, some concepts to go forward with. The EC met the following night. We reviewed that plan as well. I believe the recommendation will be coming from the EC regarding that concept plan. Our chair for the EC has notified us that he's not going to be seeking another appointment to the EC. Frank Corrado, so I want to thank him for his service in the last several years to the borough as he transitions and focuses on some other issues that he feels he wants to devote more time to. So I want to thank him for his service, and we are hoping that for some new leadership for the EC. Code committee will be meeting on Monday. Several different topics that we're trying to finalize before the year end here. I also want to echo the sentiments Mr. Sipples on John and Tommy. As the code liaison this year, I've had a really great opportunity to get to know them. I also want to echo the sentiments of Dr. Image regarding the primary school cleanup. I was really happy to be able to participate in that. I want to thank Cliff and the DPU staff for their time, for Tommy for being there, and helping address some of the issues. And we still have some more work to do, certainly, but thank you guys for helping out with that. I'm also the new appointment to the new Shrewsbury Avenue Advisory Committee that met this past week. And
one of the appointees.
Well, one of them, certainly. We met this past week. There's a pretty interesting comprehensive plan for the corridor. We met with some county officials, and we are going to apply for that, those project improvements, and hopefully get the application go through this year. So hopefully sometime next year we'll be able to move forward with those improvements. Focus mostly on pedestrian and safety overall. Also, Small Business Saturday was a beautiful day on Saturday. We were able to go around town, probably stopped into 30 businesses easily. We did take a ride in the Scooter Dudes. It was just a really cool day, really great to see the commercial district of Red Bank so alive, and so many people just out and embracing what Red Bank really has that a lot of towns wish they had. I was also at the Holiday Town Lighting. So tree lighting, it's town lighting. Thank you. I want to make sure I get that right. With the crowd, again, it was a little chilly that night, but the town came out and people from other towns were out. It was a great crowd. Obviously, thank Holiday Express for their continued support. I think it's 25-year now. So that's just a wonderful partnership. So that's my report.
Linda?
Okay, sorry to interrupt you at the end there, Michael. I was curious, are there photos of you guys on the scooters? Videos.
Videos,
All
I'm
right.
putting them up for you.
All right, I want to see those. Thanks for that. Ed had mentioned that we have engaged a consultant to help us. Eric and the mayor and I actually met with him last night, and it's not really appropriate to share any of the preliminary thoughts, but a lot of the things that they spoke about, I don't think were big surprises to any of us. The consultants have identified a couple of benchmark towns. They're going to carry us forward and see how we look. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what they have to say, because I think they're going to be really helpful.
I think that was this council's one of our best moves. When that report comes out, it will be made public, and I think it's long overdue. So thank you for the council for supporting that.
With respect to moving forward, we know that we are losing Stanley at the end of the year, and so we've been interviewing for a successor, not a replacement. But we have narrowed down to a set of finalists, and most of the second rounds are through. We're looking to get those done in the near term, and ideally we'll have recommendations out early December to middle December, so stay tuned on that. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Egan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, this is our first council meeting after the election, so I wanted to acknowledge Councilman-elect Mike Ballard, who's here today, and congratulations on winning. Congratulate Councilman Zipperich as well on his victory.
Okay. Communications and petitions. Request from Dublin House to erect a tent from November 26th through November 30th. Motion. Second. All in favor? Request from Red Bank PBA to hold a street fair on April 15th. Motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Request from Red Bank Fire Department to hold a street fair on Sunday, September 9th.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Request from Red Bank Community Block Party to hold their event from noon to 7 p.m. on August the 11th with a rain date of August 18th and closed down on Walker's Boulevard between Bridge Avenue and Shrewsbury. Motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Request from Navasink Hook and Ladder for the closure of Mechanic Street from Globe Court to Broad Street and from Mechanic Street for the fire department apparatus during the chief's election.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Request from Daniel Jamillo for membership in Navasink Hook and Ladder. Michael?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
There are a number of public ordinances as well as resolutions that are on this evening's agenda. Some are for introduction, some are for final adoption. The ordinances are actually for final adoption, so there will be a separate public hearing agenda for those comments, but we're certainly welcome to entertain any of them at any time. So any members of the public wish to have any questions or comments regarding any resolutions or ordinances that are on tonight's agenda? Mr. Forrest.
Ben Forrest, 16 Locust Avenue, and this actually is on the resolution that might happen after you have your executive session on the White Street parking lot. I know you are
Well,
sorry.
it's not on the agenda, so you can talk about a general portion now.
Right.
Yeah, so why don't you hold off on that?
Well, I think the idea, of course, you may disagree with me, is that, you know, this portion of the agenda is for things that are on the, I want to comment
Misconstruing what I
before.
said.
I understand. I just want to make sure there's an opportunity to comment before you pass a resolution.
No. What I'm saying is that if you want to comment on any resolution or ordinances, do so. I will certainly entertain your comments as soon as we get through that before we go into executive
I
session.
understand.
Okay?
Okay, you know, because you did say that you're going to be talking, and there might or might not be action on the resolution earlier, and I just
Yeah,
wanted to...
no, I'll be happy to hear from you. Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mayor. William Meyer, 12 Mama Street. I came in a little bit late, and I understand that you're going to go into executive session with regard to something in, I believe it has to do with the White Street project. That's, you know, kind of a pretty vague, large area of coverage. I object to executive sessions. I think that they're frequently unnecessary and a way to circumvent the open public sunshine law, for want of a better term. I
Your
think
objection
everybody
is
knows,
noted.
right? And my objection is strenuous along those lines. We have the right to hear what you're talking about. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so let's move on to the ordinances for first reading. There are none. Ordinances for second reading and public hearing will be ordinance 2017-36, which amends and supplements chapter 490 of the planning and development regulations relating to the electric vehicle supply equipment. These are for the new charging stations. Any members of the public wish to be heard on this ordinance? Seeing none, is there a motion to close? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Is there a motion to adopt? Second. Roll call.
Councilman Yingstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Zipperich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Horgan? Yes. Councilwoman Schwabenbauer?
Yes.
Councilman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 2017-37 is the ordinance that supplements the ordinances of the Borough of Red Bank regarding our annual update of the length of service awards program for the volunteer fire department of first aid members. Any members of the public wish to be heard on this ordinance? Seeing none, is there a motion to close? Second. All in favor? Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Councilman Yingstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Zipperich? Councilwoman Horgan? Yes. Councilwoman Schwabenbauer? Councilman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Lastly, ordinance 2017-38 is an ordinance that amends and supplements chapter 450 regarding noise, section 450.1 noise disturbances. And any members of the public wish to be heard on this? I know that there's some members who wish to be heard. Now is the time to be heard.
White's.
No, this is on the noise ordinance. Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a quick question. I haven't read your proposed ordinance, but I think I have commented to the mayor and to other people about the noise coming out of
I think you've commented on enforcement.
Jamian's. I don't know whether we need a different parameter for them to enforce it or not, times or whatever, but the new facility at Teak and sometimes Jamian, but particularly Teak, because they have the windows open, it's kind of rude in a way, because you're walking down the street and it's blasting this music that you can hear all over the place at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I don't know how long it lasts, but I mean, it doesn't comport itself to a Red Bank kind of atmosphere.
Well, part of it was to address some of the enforcement concerns, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Kemp, which is why we codified the ordinance. We are prohibiting certain types of music after certain times. Okay, any other comments? So we're going to try this to see if it works. But it all calls on enforcement, obviously. So if there's a violation, call, police have to now enforce it. Any other comments? If not, motion to close? Second. All in favor? Motion to adopt? Second. Roll call.
Councilman Yingstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Zipperich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Horgan? Yes. Councilwoman Schwabenbauer? Yes. Councilman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Okay, the ordinance is adopted. Resolutions by consent 17-255 and 17-257, unless there's an objection, will move by consent. Motion? Second? All in favor? Adopted. Resolution 17-258, authorizing an agreement with the Borough of Little Silver to provide uniform fire code enforcement services through December 31, 2018 as part of an interlocal service agreement. Motion. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 17259 is going to be held. Resolution 17260, accepting the fair market value determination of New Jersey Department of Transportation and authorizing the execution of the agreement regarding the sidewalk improvements to be made at Route 35 with DOT. Motion? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 17262, authorizing tax credits and refunds totaling $1,204.08 as a result of a judgment of the tax court. Motion. Second. All in favor? Resolution 17263, authorizing a change order number 1 to the contract with Bozak Mechanical Contractors for emergency access with respect to the water installation project. Motion. Yeah.
Just a quick question. What
Well,
was
first
that?
of all, let's have a motion.
Okay.
Second? Okay, now let's have discussion.
I was just curious what the change order was.
Should be attached to the resolution.
I mean, why I bring it up is because frequently you'll see contractors who win low bids to get public work, and then all of a sudden they start working, and then there's change orders. I just feel like it's like there's obviously unforeseen circumstances which happen. It's life. I just hate to make it happen. I remember awarding the contract to the guy Mark, and then
Yeah, the
you're a
change
low
here.
bidder, and then all of a sudden there's change orders. And then you're,
I definitely agree with you that I think that the council should be loath to approve change order of substantial nature, but I'm looking at the resolution. The change order here is for $447, so it seems de minimis.
It's also change order number 1.
Yeah. Well, if it comes to change order number 2, we might not do it.
And it relates to the emergency access road going down to the primary school for water circulation, which I know Justice has been working on for a good many years, and making sure that the flow is improved down there in the event of.
This is actually a reduction in some costs, and addition in costs to run that water main from River Street, and then hydrant from River Street past the school in this season to get a head start on the project before we get into bad weather. We got that portion done, that's the project done. And then we got the other portion of the project after bid. So that'll be ready to go when school closes towards the end of April. So we're trying to get ahead of this, so we can finish off the project during the summer, next summer.
Yeah, no, understood. More that has to be a low bidders trying to get it.
This had to do with quantities.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 17264, authorizing shared service agreement with Eaton Town for the shared use of brush compost services. Motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? 17265, requesting special item of revenue appropriations of $3,520 for the Cochran Shops program. Motion. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 17266, appointing Thomas J. Welsh as acting fire marshal to the end of the year. Motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution 267, appointing John Hooker as acting construction official to the end of the year. Motion. So moved. Second. All in favor? Resolution 17268, authorizing the transfer of the 2017 budget appropriations. Motion. Second. All in favor? Okay. Now we have no proclamations. We do have an additional resolution, and it came up this afternoon, so it's sort of, it will involve possibly litigation, but the resolution would be authorized our borough attorney to undertake an investigation as a result of the changes in the water metering program to investigate a particular user on behalf of the borough. To authorize him to start the investigation. Motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. You're authorized. Proclamations none. Payment of vouchers. Be it resolved that the mayor and council, that the bills be paid on the attached check registry totaling $5,219,893.79. Motion. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Any new business? Any new business? Audience, Mr. Forrest, I want to keep my word.
16 Locust Avenue, Bend Forest. I just want to, Democrats had a good night, but I want to thank Councilwoman Linda Schoenbauer for her service. I know you're not done yet. I know how hard you work. I see you here, and I'm here during the budget process, and I think I've made it to one or two of your budget hearings, but thank you very much. I've said a lot of the same things about this parking deck, and I know you're going into executive session. There's a lot I don't know about because you're in negotiations, you've been making progress. My main concern here is that there's not some sort of mad rush to get this all done for, to get the 3 or the 4 votes, or maybe your tie-breaking vote. I think the important thing with this White Street parking lot is that we develop a consensus here. We're all on board that whatever we decide to do with there, whether it's a big project, whether it's something small or something else entirely or nothing, we're deliberate about it, and it's, we can explain to everyone when they come to these hearings, this is why this won't work, this is why we have a very strategy in place, and this is how many spots we need for sure, and regardless of what mandates certain entities may or may not have. I'm a little concerned that I'd like to see from the parking committee kind of a strategic plan, sort of like we were talking about with Shrewsbury Avenue, where all these sort of little details, a lot of moving parts here around this whole thing. I think it would be easier to sell a parking deck or something like that if we show all the moving parts here and say, well, this is what we could do with employees, this is what we can do with high school students filling up spots, which is great. Go shopping to Hobby Masters this weekend, a lot of spots during the week are full, and then there's empty permit spots, and I'd like to figure out a way whether we can figure out to move particularly empty permit spots to places that are not so strategic like the middle of town. So, and I think you'd agree, but I know there's politics potentially at play here, and I think it's a really bad idea if we just make a hair-the-needle decision here. Let's do it right. Let's have a thorough process. There's going to be a lot of complexities around these contracts. And the worst case scenario is, let's say we rush and get something adopted and approve a developer or something. And the next council comes on board and doesn't like it. And they undo it. It might cost millions of dollars to undo it at that point. So, any contracts can be undone. It's just a matter of money. So that's the real reason why we need to make sure this is a team effort and we're all together on this. You're never going to get 100% unanimity, we're never all going to agree on everything in this town. It's impossible. Even building a park, there's disagreement with building a park on a land. So, it's not easy, but that's my message to you tonight. Let's get this right. Let's answer reasonable questions from a lot of residents have about this thing. Why can't this lot be used? Why is this empty? Why, there are a lot of good questions here. I'm kind of sold personally on the need for some sort of parking facility here. But there are a lot of legitimate questions that haven't been answered, in my opinion. Thank you very much, Mayor.
And I apologize, I wasn't trying to cough you off, Dan.
I know, I wanted to make sure I got to comment before you deliberate and make a decision. And sometimes you have to be proactive.
Anybody else? Ms. Burke.
Good evening, Cindy Burnham, 71 Wallace Street. I just wanted to throw this out to you all. Since we're talking about parking and the development of the White Street parking lot, I would suggest that you might want to think about retracting the parking moratorium, because that's kind of what brought this all on from the very beginning, allowing a restaurant with 75 seats to come in with 35 employees and not enough parking. And years and years and years of this has brought us to this point. I'd also like to ask, what is this meter investigation?
It's litigation and investigation. We can't get into it right now.
I just had my meter changed.
No, it's not you, don't worry.
You never know.
Nobody in the room, don't worry about it.
It's not you, Cindy.
I don't care.
For the
I don't care.
For the public's benefit, we're not
discussing the user at this time, it's just an
It's an
investigation.
investigation.
But before any formal action or legal action be taken, there'll be a resolution that everyone will understand what's happening. But at this time, we have to keep it confidential because we don't know what happened.
I'd like to say.
Ms. Mayor.
Mrs. But thank you.
I'm Mary Beth Maida, 84 Branch Avenue. I understand you're going into executive session. I think everyone in the room probably knows that I am not a huge supporter of rolling forward on this, as Mr. Forrest said, and I concur completely. I wonder, is it possible for we as the citizens to ask you, regardless of the outcome of your executive session, if we could ask you not to vote on anything tonight, if we could instead ask you to come out of executive session and not vote, because I don't want to stay here that long. My son has a paper due and I got to read it.
In answer to your question, I anticipate we're going to go into executive session first. It is very likely that we will not take any action, but if we take any action, we have to come back to do it. I am not necessarily sure that we are. You probably know that in about 5 minutes, and then I can step out and say, we're going to stay in, but we're either going to take action or not take action on that issue.
Oh, if you could do that, I would be so appreciative.
Well,
Thank
like I
you.
said, right now, I don't know because we're going to talk.
Okay.
Now, the other thing is we do have to be in executive session for other contractual matters, including our union contracts, and that's going to take some time.
Well, could you peek out and just let us know what you're going to do
Well,
with parking?
that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Or this.
Yeah.
This or this.
Well, if you're going to vote on something, all I would ask is could you not vote on it tonight? Because I would like to know how that turns
I'll
out.
come back and let you know.
Thank you, I appreciate
But it's-
that. Okay.
Whatever happens, it's not going to be that. Yeah, okay.
That's probably an understatement, but okay, yeah.
Mike?
Good evening, Michael Ballard, 190 River Street. I just wanted to thank Linda for her service on the council. I appreciate, everybody who's brave enough to sit up here. So thank you. I did have a question for Councilman Whalen, and I direct this to you because you've been the face of the White Street redevelopment. So I want to refer to your question and answer 2 years ago when you ran for council regarding the White Street lot. And the question was, do you agree or disagree that Red Bank is becoming overdeveloped? And you answered, agree. We are called a cool little town, and every year it seems that title is changing towards expensive big town. When you first enter Red Bank, you see Armani, Tiffany's, Morgan Stanley, and Merrill Lynch. Is this Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, excuse me, or Red Bank? Of course we want upscale businesses in our town, but to price people out is morally wrong. Look what happens to every mom and pop shop that has ever opened. To make matters worse, our infrastructure can't maintain these new apartments and complexes that are growing at a rapid pace. When is enough enough? These are your words 2 years ago when you asked people to vote for you to put you on the council. Shouldn't you stand by those words now as we talk about, talk about the White Street lot?
Thank you for reading my statement from 2 years ago, and congratulations again on your victory in November.
Thank you.
I do not believe that overdevelopment necessarily means a garage. I don't think all because you want a garage, you fix a parking shortage, it means you're overdeveloping. I think you're confusing, or you're taking my words as apples and oranges. Again, I stated we're a cool little town, and that saying is now no longer being a cool little town. I agree we're not going to be a cool little town because there might not be a downtown because of the parking shortage. So when you say when is enough enough, my simple answer would be that I don't believe that building a garage is correlated with development. I look at a garage necessarily as keeping a downtown alive as well as infrastructure improvements. I mean, there's many different ways you can look at the parking facility, but I don't think there's any relevance with overdevelopment in a garage, but I appreciate the question.
Mr. Bauer, Mr. Byers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regard to the executive session, I would like to know, and I'll wait your time for a couple of minutes first, the rationale for it having to be done in executive session as opposed to out here. But before I do that, I want to address something that Mr. Whalen just said. I have been a critic, as you know, of how you're going about dealing with this parking problem. The problem with the way you're going about it is, we need to address parking, but you want to develop the whole lot into a giant, like, I think one thing was 230, 2.5 bedroom apartment, something along that nature. Well, clearly, that is not just solving the parking problem. In fact, that's creating a parking problem. You're now going to have to park these people. The problem I have with this whole method is that it's, to use an expression, it's A, backwards. The first thing you have to find out is, and I said this before, how much is it going to cost for you to do a standalone parking garage? If you don't have that benchmark to start off with, you can't evaluate any of these projects. Red Bank, unfortunately, has Route 35 going right through it. That's not going to change. We are surrounded all the way completely. We're not going to be able to blow out Broad Street and make it wider and put more lanes in there. We've already got a problem on Front Street. It gets worse all the time. You can't even drive during rush hour without massive delays and aggravation. That's only going to get worse as time goes on anyhow, but to supercharge the aggravation factor and making it worse now without solving the parking problem, I think is foolish. I'm a critic, and I think it's fundamentally flawed for you to have used the redevelopment ordinance. Clearly, what Mr. Ballard read about Mr. Whalen and perhaps Mr. Taylor, but certainly about Mr. Whalen back in those days, is that we were blindsided by this. All of a sudden, he gets elected, and this project is flying, and I submit a proposal to the council about what it would cost to do something that would provide us pure parking. And the big advantage of what my project would have done is it would have kept the garage all the way at one end of the White Street lot. It would have left almost 2/3 of the lot open for surface parking. It would have allowed us to continue using it for the Oyster Fest, generating money. We also had what Mr. Bauer had indicated is this opportunity to use River Center money to pay for it. I mean, we can cover this. We're talking about something that's less than $7 million. And I went from $6 to $7 million just to put a safety zone in there. These are precast parking garages. They have a lot of efficiency factors. I won't get into that right now, but nobody used the benchmark cost factor. So then to go through this process the way you've gone through it so far leaves a lot of people with the belief that we're sort of getting railroaded. You know, we're not allowed to hear what goes on in executive sessions. We've been told that yes, we can't speak about fine-tuning a development plan. It's got to go to the, I think it was the planning board had to approve it. Then all these people, myself included, go to the planning board. And we're sitting in a planning board and we're told, no, the only issue with the planning board is whether or not it's consistent with the master plan, period. One expert got up there, said it was. We were blindsided. They voted in favor of it. They were nice enough to hear a couple complaints, grumblings, but for no benefit whatsoever. As far as being able to participate in government, I think we're left out in the cold. And a lot of money's being spent on this. And when you go about doing something the wrong way, as I said, backwards, and you spend all this money before you know what you need and what the public wants, which takes me into the referendum aspect. Anything you do on this, particularly with the White Street lot, because it belongs to all of us, and it's a big part of Red Bank, and it's the last major property in Red Bank, should be voted on and approved by the people of Red Bank, not by a council. And I've said this before, we have conflicts of interest that have always existed in politics with council people and engineers, engineering firms, always donating money to campaigns. Then they want to get work. I mean, plain and simple. I think we really need to step back. I would like to see the resolution or the ordinance, whatever it was, that declared the White Street lot an area in need of redevelopment rescinded.
It was.
No, None?
The plan was rescinded, so we don't have
Okay,
a plan.
and you and I spoke about that, and you did indicate that that was going to be rescinded. And I think, you know, council is correct, as far as I know, it wasn't. It should be, because it's,
The redevelopment plan ordinance was rescinded. The
Yes,
designation of area needed redevelopment is still in place.
I know, and that specifically is the most egregious aspect of this whole project, and that should be rescinded immediately. We can do whatever we want with property we own. We don't need a redevelopment ordinance. That's a gimmick. In my opinion, it's worse than a gimmick. We need to focus on what we can do. We would have a parking garage already had we not gone on this folly of a redevelopment plan. And certainly it came out so fast after the election that I have to think it was in the works before some of these people got elected. And I implore you to let the people get involved, put it in front of the people, find something that is going to be efficient. You can literally make money with this parking garage without creating a bigger problem tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, I'd like to make one quick point. I think it's just important to get out there. The project just flew in after we were elected and that we're the ones jamming down our roads. All I would like to say is that my first year as parking committee chairman, I was on the parking committee with Councilman Ed Zipperich and former Councilwoman Cindy Burnham. Obviously shortly after my first year, Cindy obviously ran as an independent, so there was no majority on the parking committee my first year in office. My second year in office, as I currently stand as the parking chairman, I'm on with Councilman Zipperich and Councilman Yingstrom, so it actually would be the opposite of my aisle that is in control of the parking committee. And the chairman really is just a position. For example, about a month or two ago, Councilman Yingstrom wanted to put on a resolution. Councilman Yingstrom, remember that it was the valet about commercial parking lots, whether or not landlords can rent out perhaps their parking lots for other vehicles. I actually said as the parking chair, I did not want to see that on that agenda, and it didn't matter, it was still put on because Councilman Yingstrom wanted it. So for over my 2 years, I've never had a majority, and more importantly, the Republicans, at least the ones that have been sitting up here, have never once had a majority over the last 2 years. And the last time I checked, you need 4 votes to pass anything. So just before we say that even we're flying something through or jamming it down people's throats, over the last 2 years, I've never had a majority on the parking committee, and we've never had a majority on the governing body, which takes 4 votes, and we only have 3. So it hasn't been just one side jamming it through, because that's actually hasn't been, it's just impossible. I just want to make that clear, just if we're going to keep saying that we're jamming this through, or there's some coercion before the elections, it just would be impossible.
I don't know how clear that is, but I'll leave that up to the people who heard what you said. It doesn't change the fact that no one looked at a standalone parking garage. You had no benchmark. That should have been the very first thing that was done.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. May.
Bruce Maida, 84 Branch Avenue. Let me simplify Mr. Whalen's comment to everybody. He talked about jamming this thing down. The vote was taken while Councilman Morgan was on vacation, okay, for this redevelopment. All right, so that was the clear majority right there, number one. Number two, I heard a disturbing rumor, I don't know if it's true, that Councilman Whalen will be appointed to a position on the freeholder board. I don't know if it's true, but it's possible. I ask everyone on the board, on the council, to please don't allow Councilman Whalen's political career to be built on the backs of the Red Bank residents. Thank you.
Also, for the record, there's been...
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if you have to address it.
No, I'm not addressing the rumor. My point is that the one vote while Councilman Morgan was out of the country, I think so far since I've been elected, there's been, I'd say anywhere between 9 and 12 White Street votes. So to reference one, you're 100% right. One of them was while Councilwoman Morgan was out of the country, but there was also at least 8 to 10 while the entire governing body was here. Just wanted to set that straight as well. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill Brooks, 77 Tower Hill Avenue, Red Bank. About 6 or 7 months ago when this started, I mentioned that we needed a parking study, and you agreed with me, Mayor, that current empirical data was important. When we had our public meeting with the two developers, both developers stated that they could not guarantee 500 net new in their proposals, which was one of the criteria that was in the RFP. And also at that meeting, the business community through their representatives said that they could not support this as constituted if they could not guarantee net 500 new. Both of the developers' principals told you needed a current parking study. Well, I would suggest then that they might know what they're talking about. They're the ones willing to raise the capital and try and do that. But when they're telling you you can't get 500 net new out of your criteria, you might want to listen to them. Because we have to get this right. The town cannot afford to get it wrong. There is no doubt that there is a parking issue in this town. Do we know if we've maximized all the surface lots we have? Probably not. And I'm not trying to fault anybody for that. Please understand that. I think we all agree that we could probably do better signage and direction into our lots for visitors coming to town. Those of us who have lived here for a while know where to find parking spaces at night. I know there has been some work done about moving some of the permits out of the White Street lot and into the east side lots. That's a step in the right direction. But let's not rush to do something because you can't undo it if you get it wrong. You really can't. All I ask is that you think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Anybody else? Okay. Just go on.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm probably going to make everyone unhappy with what I'm about to say on this dais. First of all, we were at River Center were shocked and saddened by the statement in the Two River Times that blamed River Center for the failure of this project. And I need to state that we very strongly feel that had River Center been brought into the process from the beginning with the redevelopment plan, with the RFP, and with the proposals that were presented, that we would not be in this position that we are in. From the very beginning of this process, we said that we would support any project, public-private development, residential development, retail development, or a privately owned garage, as long as we felt that it gave that the true goal of the project was to help solve the parking problem. I disagree with a lot of the comments that we don't know that there is a parking problem. We know there is a parking problem in Red Bank. And we looked to you after being promised by you that we were going to try to solve this problem. And for a variety of reasons, and I am not a political person, so I don't understand the politics of it always, but we got into this situation that we are now in. I urge the council on behalf of River Center to consider carefully doing anything that does not help us solve the parking problem, as it can be solved to the extent that it can be solved, which we all know is not in totality, but to the extent that it can be solved on the White Street lot, we beg you, we plead with you to do what this project was originally about, and that is to solve the parking problem that the business community faces every day. Thank you.
I just really wanted to follow up actually on my friends from River Center's comment, and that one of the problems in this whole thing, one error that has been made, and it was talked about earlier. One? Yeah, well, one of the big ones was relying on these old studies. Now, to be polite about it, I think it's 19-year-old studies now. They're, you know, what's that?
25.
25? I mean, there's been a lot of nights here, a lot of people have said, the studies have proven, the studies have shown, and the studies say this, and the studies say that. But a lot has happened in 20 years, and more. And it was a strategic error, really, early on, that we didn't do a more thorough evaluation of our parking needs. I hate the word study. Everybody hates, oh, another study, but they're out of date. They're too old. The world has changed somewhat. There are differences now in Uber and all kinds of things. I think towns have also experimented with some creative things to try to deal with parking that we probably want to incorporate. So we might be able to live with a smaller parking deck possibly. Again, strategic plan and up-to-date current data would be really essential. And I'd like to solve this problem as quickly as possible too, but I think everybody agrees, we've got to get it right. And if it means it takes a bit longer to get it right, let's take a bit longer to get it right. We don't want to build a white elephant and then pay for it. Thank you.
Ben, I just wanted to thank you for your comments. A data-driven analysis is what is needed here. I can empathize with Mr. Scavone because having been the liaison to River Center this past year, the business community has asked for a seat at the table and they weren't brought in until the end. And I think going forward, what we need is a revenue and demand study to be done so that we know what the business sector has been. We may find out that we need 3,000 new parking spaces. And going forward, I think it's important for...
It's too huge.
But if we find that out, and then we know how to address it going forward. Having sat through this whole process and watched it unfold, and then, as Mr. Brooks pointed out when he came to the microphone before, that both of the developers that we're talking to right now both said that we need a parking study and a revenue and demand study to be done before they can even proceed, I think is the right way to go moving forward, along with our colleagues at River Center being at the table going forward.
I agree with you, Councilman. And the other thing that we need to do is our planning boards and boards of adjustment in the whole town, when we have a strategic plan for all of our parking and needs, we've had slow, incremental, let's eliminate some spots here. Let's approve, I don't want to name project over here that's going to eliminate a few spots. Let's improve this and improve that. And all of a sudden, it turns into a lot of spots over the years. And, it's not like a big conspiracy, but very slowly and steadily, we've added to the parking load, and yet we have fewer spots.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I just have one more thing I'd like to throw in. I'm sorry, but I just feel like I got the answer here, which is...
You're not tired anymore?
No, I was never about being tired. It's about going home and helping my son with his paper. But all I would like to say is, since there seems to be a lot of agreement around the idea that we need a study, instead of going into executive session to talk about things that make people in the audience perhaps uneasy because we don't know what you're going to be talking about, couldn't we just agree right now that the answer is to commission a study and then from there figure out the details of it and move forward so that we can all walk away knowing that we are making progress, we are moving forward in a way that speaks to all of the issues within the town, but addresses what the professionals who we engaged have told us we need. I mean, why do you need to go into executive session to say, you know what, I think we need a study, so let's put whatever it is out that you do first so that we can all say, let's get this study going, and then let's come back in 2 weeks and vote on these things, and then let's get a study going. Come on, I mean, let's get this thing going. Let's figure out what we need and get to an answer that works for everybody. I don't think it's elusive. I don't think it's difficult. I think that the disconnect between the business and the residents and the council comes when you say things like, well, we're going to go into executive council and we'll let you know how it is, and the businesses say one thing and the residents say another. Why don't we just all come together and say, let's get a study going. What do we think? That's my comment, and I would love you to end it.
Thank you. Okay, nobody else I see. Motion to adjourn to executive session for just purposes of discussion, and then I'll come back out in less than 5 minutes. So, second? All in favor? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we just answered, no, apparently not. No.